Thanks for coming. This is our second one. We just had one of these 45 minutes ago or so. There's a roster going around. Please sign beside it so we get credit for this. We're going to, Mr. Clayton Parrott from the county is here. He is going to go over this form that's in front of you. It's the ICS-214 form. This form will be used by every person working the event. Every single person in your department has to fill out one of these individual forms during the event. It's required, okay? Finance is on board with this. This helps them get the money back that we need to get reimbursed. It's a log, and Clayton will go into more details about it. One thing that everybody needs to understand, this kind of came up in the last class, is when Clayton starts talking about unit leaders and stuff like that, doing forms as a unit and stuff like that, he's just not talking about fire department. He's just not talking about maybe the police department. He's talking about everybody. What that means is that just because you work for the water department and Public Works needs help and you have people available, you may be going to Public Works to work. Public Services may go to the water department, or they may go to Public Works, or they may go on the fire truck with us to help us do some stuff. Everybody during a storm may be on something that you're not even used to doing because we need help. It's an all hands on deck type thing. So just because you work for a certain department after a storm, just understand that you may be doing something out of the norm. So when he talks about unit stuff, pay attention, because that's kind of what we need to make sure we're getting all the paperwork done. This form is very important to make sure that it's all done correctly and turned in so finance can track everything. This is the biggest headache of any storm, is paperwork. This is where finance months later has to come back for questions and ask us what we did, what does this mean, the times and everything. So that's trying to standardize. Before, every department had their own form and it would get turned in. Michelle, who's no longer here, understood the system. The finance now wants one form, one system set up. So please, if you have any questions, this is the guy to ask, and we'll try to get them answered for you so we get it all correct. All right? Thanks again for coming. Clayton, it's your show.
All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for turning out. Another huge class. I know people, as I said to the earlier one, people love filling out forms. I mean, that's just something we've got to do. I can't wait to get home and good, I get to fill out another form, right? Super excited. One thing I do want you to understand about the 214 before we actually start going through it, is you'll notice at the top of it, it says activity log. Don't read too much into it and put too much importance on, certain aspects of boxes and stuff like that. All you're wanting to do with this form is exactly what it says. You're just wanting to track your activity, what you did, so that then when finance goes to turn this form in and FEMA gets the form, if they have any questions, okay, what did this person do? Well, you've got a form, you've got documentation. This is what they did. And that is really and truly the crux of all this form and what it entails. Now what I did, I said to the other class, I searched the internet high and low to try to find a video professionally done on how to fill out an ICS form 214. And believe it or not, as important a form as this is, there was not one out there, anywhere. I found all sorts of individual departments did this, they did that. There was not a clear, concise video that said, in box 1 you put this, in box 4 you put this. So, not finding anything, I took it on myself, I created it. So, you're going to have to painstakingly suffer through it. It is 6 minutes and 58 seconds, so hopefully you're not going to get too bored with it. Saves me having to go through a lot of things and possibly missing something, but what I do in this video is I go through every box on this form. What I said to the other class, you've got forms in front of you. if there's a spot in the video that I'm talking about something in a particular box, and you've got a question about it, and you want to come back to that after the video, put a little mark there, put a question mark or something, or write a comment. Those are your forms. You can have them. I have plenty more, and I'm sure Megan has plenty more. So I'm going to quickly play this, and then afterwards, then we can get into Q&A, stuff like that. All right?
Welcome. In this short video, I'm going to show you how to fill out and complete the ICS Form 214. First, we need to understand the importance of this form. It captures your time and activities working on an event. It provides documentation that can assist you or your agency's claim for reimbursement, whether this is for FEMA or just for your own reimbursement locally. The ICS Form 214 is a log or timeline of your daily activities. It also captures any significant events that you may have encountered. It can also be used to capture other items such as mileage, meals, or any activity that needs to be recorded and or reported. Remember the golden rule. If it wasn't written down, it did not happen. So let's begin. Open the ICS Form 214. This can either be in a paper copy, a fillable PDF, or a Word document. The first thing you will notice is there are several boxes or fields that information needs to go into. The first item you will want to fill out is the incident name. The incident name will be the same for the entire event and should never change. Although the nomenclature may change, for example, a tropical storm may be upgraded to a hurricane. The actual incident name will stay the same. The next item you will want to fill out will be the operational period. The incident commander will determine the length of the operational period with input from staff. In some cases, the operational period length may change from day to day based on operational and incident needs. The length of an operational period depends on the nature and complexity of the incident. Common lengths of operational periods are 4, 8, 12, or 24 hours, depending on the nature and complexity of the incident and working conditions such as weather, safety, and anticipated fatigue. In this example shown, the operational period is a 12-hour period from 0600 to 1800. Please remember to use the 24-hour time format. Also note, the actual time you work may be different than the actual operational period. It may be longer or shorter. I will show an example of this when it comes to the area we input our actual time. The next section is for the unit leader or your name. Your name will go here as this is for your time and activities. If you're doing a 214 for a unit such as a strike team, task force, or keeping a 214 for an entire group, that would be a separate 214. This will be explained in a later slide. Remember, you still need to keep your own individual 214. The next item you will want to fill in is your ICS position. This is the position that you were working during this operational period. If you're working at an EOC, this would be the desk position you were at. This could change during an event, so remember to keep this current if your position changes. For example, you could be the supply unit leader on an incident for the first operational period. Then your position could change to be the logistics section chief, depending on the complexity and length of an incident. The next box or field is your home agency and unit. This is who you work for on a day-to-day basis. In this example, the home agency is Pinellas County. The unit is Emergency Management. Yours will vary, but this gives you an idea of what information is needed here. The next box is Resources Assigned. Now, as I mentioned before, the next section would only be filled out if you were completing a 214 for a unit, task force, or strike team, and you have resources or people assigned to you. I'm going to show a brief example of this so you can see what would go into these fields if you were completing one for a unit. Again, remember this would only be used if you're completing a 214 for a unit. Otherwise, this section would either be blank or a line would be drawn through depending on what your agency requires. Remember, you will still have to have each member of the unit complete an individual 214 for themselves. Now let's look at how time and activities are recorded. Typically, what is being looked for in this section are items like start time or the time you came on shift. Any items that are notable. A good rule of thumb is, if you think someone else needs to know that this happened or may need this information, then it needs to be captured. This would include the following: the time, remember 24-hour format, a brief description of the event or incident, and if there's any doubt whether it should be captured, then write it down. It's better to have the information than not. Also earlier, I mentioned your actual work hours may not be the same as the operational period. In the example shown, you can see that the operational period is from 0600 to 1800, but you work from 0600 to 2200. You would want to capture all this information. I also mentioned earlier that the 214 can be used to capture other items such as mileage, meals, or any activity that needs to be recorded and or reported. In the example shown, you will see we have captured mileage for the day, meals if they were provided or not, and an insert of a map showing the route if you were traveling. These are all items that could be added but are not required. Finally, the last steps are to fill out the bottom sections. This is the prepared by, typically would be yourself. Page number, if there's more than one page, this needs to be shown. The position or title of the person filling out the form. Do not forget to sign and date the form. Last point I cannot stress enough. Normally, these 214s are collected either by the documentation unit or by your local administrator. Before you hand these over, make a copy or take a photo. Once this leaves your possession, you have no control of the document getting lost, misplaced, or not included in the final package being sent in for reimbursement. I thank you for your time and hope this video has been helpful.
Okay, now for the 1,000th question.
Can I start?
Sure.
I always ran out of ink with my question marks, and hopefully my questions will be answered, many
Okay.
others. Starting from the top, by the way, thanks for your time today. Tony Manello, Public Works. Incident name, you said it doesn't change, then you said it does change. If, say, Tropical Storm Agatha is Tropical Storm Agatha, and then it changes to Hurricane Agatha,
Correct.
we do not, this remains Tropical Storm, or does
No.
it?
It's said in the thing, the name of the event, which is Agatha, stays the same. The nomenclature may change. So it's gone from Tropical Storm Agatha now to Hurricane Agatha.
So say we're on whatever 0800 hours of the day, it changes from Tropical Storm Agatha, which we're filling out, it now changes to Hurricane Agatha. Do we get a brand new
Good question.
ICS form and start
Okay.
that under Hurricane?
Now, that would be considered a significant event, right?
Correct.
So at 1300 hours, Tropical Storm Agatha upgraded to Hurricane Agatha, right? So when you started your shift, it was a tropical storm. So that's what's up here, right? Down in here, you will put 1300 Tropical Storm Agatha upgraded to Hurricane Agatha, and you just carry your form on out.
So on the next form,
On the next form, it's now going to be, because it's now a hurricane, it's now Hurricane Agatha.
okay,
Yeah,
And here's a good rule of thumb.
operational period.
Yeah, it's for that operational period, right? Even though something happened in the middle of it, something like that would be considered a significant event that you want to track, right? When you started your shift, it was a tropical storm, right? if you haven't got something like this or a little tiny flip notebook, get yourself one. Because what I typically do, most people, and I've seen numerous people, they'll have this sitting at their EOC desk position, and as they're going along, they're doing stuff, they're trying to fill out their 214 at the same time. That never works. Trust me, it is a pain. The best thing you can do is, as you're going along during the day, the main thing of this is to capture what you did that day. Because if you try to fill this out tomorrow, you're not going to remember what you did yesterday. There's a lot going on. So what I will do, Monday 4/4/22, any significance of it, I just pull out my notepad, I just write it down, blah, blah, blah. Goes back in my pocket. End of shift, I'm sitting down, I'm getting ready to rest, pack up, do whatever I'm doing, whatever. Pull out my computer, I fill out my 214 for that day. What did I do that day? It's just my log. That's all it is. I try to say that to where, you know, it's not to where people don't get wrapped around, you know, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, and it's really, you know, imperative, you know, and it's a stickler for this and that. It's a log of what you did, so you can then turn that into finance, so that they can then turn that into FEMA, so that at the end of the day, you can get paid, and Tarpon Springs can get reimbursed by the state, by FEMA, or by whoever. If they ever came back 5 or 6 years later and they said, okay, what did he do, or what did you do on the Tuesday the 4th? They can go back, pull the form up and say, oh, okay, he went out and serviced the generator, they had to change the oil, they had to go out and respond to this building had lost power. It's just a record of what you did. They're not nailing you down to, well, you said you spent 15 minutes over here, or you said you spent an hour over here. That's not as important as keeping track of what you did. Because it might involve that, let's say you had to go and replace a generator or something of that nature. Who's got a record of it? Well, we went out and replaced a generator at one of the schools, okay? Where's the record of it? Whoever went and replaced the generator, that was an activity that he did. He or a team, or she. They went out and replaced a generator. It should show up on a 214 somewhere. You've obviously got a log that somebody checked out a generator and that it was delivered to a certain place. But where's the log of, okay, who wired it up? Who turned it on? Who verified that it was working? That's what they're looking for. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Next question. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, to clarify, the incident name is gonna be Agatha, regardless of whether it's tropical storm or.
Well, the incident name, for example, everybody remembers Hurricane Ian, right? The EOC activated while it was still a tropical storm. When we were filling out our 214s, it was filled out. I mean, we even started out, because we started like 5 days out. Ours originally, my original 214 was Tropical Depression. And it was like Tropical Depression 1. And then it got upgraded to Tropical Storm Ian. And then it got upgraded to Hurricane Ian. And then by the time we were demobilized or deactivated, it went back down to a tropical storm. And then we closed up shop and we were done.
I get it.
But the actual name, like my name's Clayton, it doesn't change. I may get a different rank, I might be corporal, captain, lieutenant, I would hope, you know, or whatever, that nomenclature in front of the name, that might change. But the actual name of the event, so if I came to somebody and said, I want all your documentation on Ian, right? Then that captures everything, whether it was Tropical Storm Ian, Depression Ian, or Hurricane Ian. I want everything you've got about Ian or Agatha, so that if I'm doing a search through all of my database, I can pull that up. And in some respects, that's not, and I don't want to say it's not that important, but really and truly, it isn't that important. I mean, really, in all fairness, if you just wanted to put Ian or Agatha, it's not, nobody's going to deduct points for you.
Can you abbreviate?
Yeah, AG for Agatha.
Agatha,
That's what's Agatha. I'm not
Yeah.
talking about hurricane.
yeah. I mean,
HRR period.
if the incident, whether it's Tropical Storm Agatha, Hurricane Agatha, if you just want to put Agatha, that's fine. I don't think anybody's going to come back and say, oh, you should have put Tropical Storm. No, you put down Agatha, right? Fire away.
Box 4, ICS position. We have several different branches, and I hate to be specific, but it may apply to others. I get the EOC desk number for
Yeah.
those staff at EOC, I get that. However, the staff, the individuals who are actually on push crews or whatnot that are staged, is it the staff name, the vehicle or equipment they're assigned to, and then it says title? Would it be Public Works? Would it be push crew? Would it be streets? Would it be stormwater? Would it
Okay,
be?
what are they doing?
We do everything.
Okay, so for example, if you're out there doing damage assessment,
No, just put some, say for simple, just the initial push crew. We go out and open roadways for EMS and
okay,
police.
so you're a push crew.
So push crew, okay, so not Phil Ferrone, crew leader?
No,
Straight, okay,
no.
push crew.
It's your ICS position. I typically would put, because I do have an ICS position, I would either put, depending on what they brought me in for, either LSC, which is a logistics section chief, or I would put a COMU, which is communications unit leader. So those are the two positions I would put
Now, is that what you are year-round, or is that just during EOC events?
during the EOC events.
So what if we don't have titles during EOC events?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
Yeah,
say. Is
What
there-
are we called?
Is there a list of official titles that?
there
you just
are
say,
what
well,
they
maybe
call
fit this?
ESFs, is called emergency support functions. So for example, fire is under, correct me if I'm wrong, ESF 4, right? So you could just put ICS position fire, or you could put ESF 4, if you know that.
How do we know that?
There's a list out there.
Do we Google it?
Yeah, actually it is Google.
Okay.
Googleable. It
It
is now. It is now. But yeah, in all fairness, that ICS position, what were you doing? What were you doing? Were you on a push crew? Were you doing damage assessment? You know, DA, damage assessment.
It's where you were assigned.
Yeah,
So
where were
wherever,
you assigned?
where did you assign that person? That's whatever you assign them to, that's what they're gonna put in that position, so.
What if there's multiple roles? Say for instance, okay, EOC closes, I go out to assist push crews, I'm also on damage assessment. Do I have to have a form for each position?
No,
No.
you just put down your what's your primary, you're out there doing damage assessment. Okay? In your activities, what you actually did, that's what you tracked.
Whatever you're assigned for that operational period. So
Yeah, whatever
you
you're
were assigned
assigned for
you may do
that
things throughout that operational period that aren't necessarily tagged with whatever your position is. But during that operational period, that's where you were assigned, and then you're gonna continue down.
Yeah.
And if they go, hey, now you're moving to this position, you're gonna put that in the activity log, but you continue moving on the activity log, and then in the next operational period, you're gonna have another form that you're gonna
So
have.
like you were saying, you may start out that you're on damage assessment. And then you start at 6 o'clock going out doing damage assessment, then they said, hey, we need you now to start, we need you to come over here and help with the push crews. So 1,300 moved over to assist push crews. Tomorrow morning, when you come on shift, they're still wanting you to be with push crews. So you would just change that position to now you're working push crews. Halfway through the day, again, because all incidents are fluid, they say, hey, you know what? Push crews are good, damage assessment is good. We need you to go out there and help that dump truck, and they need to load sandbags. So now your ICS position just became sandbags.
What if it's a multitask situation where you're going out assisting push crews and also have a role of damage assessment? You're not.
Put a slash.
Okay,
It's
okay,
not,
'cause you don't-
yeah.
all right.
It's not locked in hard and fast. This is just something so that if I came back to you 3 weeks from now and I say to you, what'd you do 3 weeks ago? And you go, yeah, hang on a second. Oh, okay, I was doing both push crews and damage assessment. That's all I need to know.
Because a lot of our questions, well, our public works specific questions, we were drilled into this form. You familiar with that? With the hours and the equipment and the vehicles and the fuel and the specifics of each function.
And that's, again, some departments may want that or that type of information, but really and truly, we're looking at from a finance perspective, from reimbursement from FEMA, they want to know, remember, this is you personally, nothing to do with equipment, fuel, or any of that. This is what you did personally.
And that being said, there was questions on this super specific form from finance. Hey, elaborate on this, or what equipment was, so when you say in 3 weeks what you do, we could tell you here by minute what we did and what equipment and what vehicle. If we write on here, we were a push crew.
Right.
Then they're gonna come back 3 weeks and say, well, what vehicle were you in? What
Right,
equipment?
okay, here's the thing. Is that a FEMA form?
From what I understand, yes, it was.
Should be. It'll have a FEMA number on it.
Well, it's been several generations of reproduction,
Yeah.
so I don't know.
Yeah, that's not a FEMA form.
Okay, so then out the window. There you go. That clears up a lot.
FEMA's going to look for FEMA forms.
Okay, gotcha.
It's an ICS form, Incident Command System form.
And FEMA there is a form for equipment
Yep.
too, and that you fill out the hours and the stuff specifically for the
Yeah.
equipment, and that's for reimbursement of use of that piece of equipment.
I have to do
The
one.
ICS, the 214 form is for your pay salaried, what you were doing during that time.
Okay, so do we have, can you give us examples of the other forms
Yeah.
and training on that? Because 90% of it's gonna be the form that we don't have. This
Yeah.
would be 10% of what we do.
Well,
Yeah.
that'll be for
We're just
you
focusing on
personally,
this right now.
but we'll
Yeah, I think,
look for the form for the
For example,
equipment
I've got,
itself.
when I go, you know, you heard me mention communications unit. When I go to do a communications unit, I have to fill out like 4 forms. That's my personal one for 214. Then I have a 205, which is the communications form that lists every frequency that the fire department, police department, Sunstar, every frequency or radio channel they're using. And then I have a form 205A, which is every person that's on the event with their contact numbers on it. And then there's the form 217 that I have to fill out that are my radio assets that I have available to me. And then, I forget the name of the 309, which is the communications log that everything that is said over the radio is actually captured on that form. Every transmission to somebody and from somebody is like a paper tape recording. that someone has to do. So just for communications, I've got like 5 forms I have to keep track of.
On your video, under number 6, you said unit only goes in there, and then a couple sentences down, you said the individuals only. It was a little
Okay.
back and forth.
So this is one we get a lot of questions on a lot of times. If you are just filling out a form for you, you don't have anybody assigned to you. You're sitting at an EOC desk, you're a finance person, you're whatever in the EOC. You're manning a desk position. What's going to go in the unit leader? You are the unit leader. You're your unit leader. That's you, right? If you do not have anybody reporting to you or that you are supervising at a unit level, like a crew out doing a push or damage assessment, if you're not supervising anybody, that whole section there, this whole section right in here is blank.
Would that be just your name?
No, you don't even need to put resources assigned. You're not assigned to yourself. This is just people that are assigned to the unit leader, which is you.
So those are the people that work under you.
Yeah.
These are your people under you.
It's normally, so the resources assigned are normally for things that, like, I have an engine crew, right? So my lieutenant would be the unit leader, and then he's gonna have 3 or 4 people on his unit engine that are gonna go in the resources assigned. Those are, because he's gonna have to fill out one for himself.
He's gonna have a driver, he's gonna have 2 firefighters with him.
Right.
Okay, first of all, on this form that we've got says name, it doesn't say unit leader.
Yeah, you're the leader.
Yeah, you're the leader.
It doesn't say you.
No, it doesn't, it says name. What name?
Okay, that's the PDF version. This is my Word version. It's the same thing.
Where it says unit leader, it says name,
Yes.
that's you.
Okay, so, okay, because once again, there's different, something explained here.
That's the word one that I'm gonna send Megan that you can use.
He made a word, one that he's gonna send us after the class.
That's a whole lot easier to
So it's
fill out,
fillable.
right?
This is the one that's online, right here. The FEMA form online.
Yes, sir.
So,
Regarding unit leaders, at what level of supervision does someone become a unit leader over where they have to report all the resources assigned? So like, for example, if we had a field supervisor and he was in radio communication with 2 other trucks driving around doing a damage assessment, and they're reporting back to him, is he filling out he's the unit leader and he's got one other guy in the truck? Are his resources assigned the other guy in the truck, or is it him, the other guy in the truck, and the 2 other trucks with 2 staff driving around that are all reporting back to him?
Okay, so that's a good scenario. Actually, that's a very good one. So if you didn't hear it, we've got DA crews going out. We've got field supervisor that he has sent, for argument's sake, I'm gonna say he sent out 4 trucks, truck 1, 2, 3, and 4. He's got Bill, Frank, John, and Ted in it. He is the unit leader. Bill, Frank, John, and Ted, they're the 4 trucks that are out there doing the work. He's going to keep track of them. They're doing damage assessment, because the thing is, those guys doing the damage assessment, one of them might be a firefighter, one of them may be from Public Works, one may be from Botanical Gardens. You got no idea where they're. You've told somebody, hey, I need you to get in a truck, go drive that road, let me know what kind of damage you see. They may not even work for him, but during this event, they are reporting back to him as a unit leader. You with me so far? What he will do, he's going to have his own personal 214 of what he's got going on, because while this is going on, he's probably doing other things as well. So he's keeping track of his personal stuff, but he has another 214 that is for this unit, right? Time, Truck one called in, said Almerton Road, totally underwater. Truck three called in, Tarpon Boulevard, impassable, significant events, right? He could either label them by truck, and he could put their name, ICS position, damage assessment, truck one. What agency they work for, just so he knows. If somebody says to me, who have you got out there on truck three? He says, oh, okay, I've got so-and-so, and he's from the IT department. Yes, they do let IT people drive vehicles. But you see where I'm going with that? Does that help you any? Does that make sense? Or
Yeah, so his resources assigned don't have to be like in the same vehicle or any physical
Nope.
person, as long as they're reporting back to him and.
As long as they are, it's
They're
typically
assigned.
when you're a unit leader, it's typically, you're outside the EOC, typically. You're outside the EOC, like Chief there said, you're on a fire truck, you've got I don't know what we would have a SWAT team for, but let's say you had a SWAT team out there, you've got a unit, or you've got a damage assessment, or you've got a push crew out there. It's keeping track of the whole crew, but each crew member, because they might be doing something slightly different. Of that crew, if you've got a push crew, one of those guys might be a chainsaw operator. One of the other guys might be, bulldozer driver. The other guy may be the dump truck driver. There are certain things during that course of events that are gonna happen that they need to document. Broke chainsaw. I need to get a new chainsaw. Needed to change the blade out so that they can keep track of how long these things are lasting. Dump truck wouldn't start, battery's dead, or got a flat tire. So their individual things, yeah, they would probably report them back up, and he would probably put those in as well. And at the same time, he's doing his own personal things while this unit is out doing its things. But at the end of the day, once all these forms come back in, it gives finance and FEMA and everyone else a very, very clear picture of what went on during that event. They can go back and track exactly what happened. And it's not to point fingers or at anything. It's basically just to keep track. And if anything, the old adage, CYA, it's to cover yourself. If somebody says, well, we deployed the
It gets
generator out to
decided
the
on
school. Okay, you've probably got a tracking
Generally.
that generator came from
Generally we
inventory.
do 24s.
You've probably
Sometimes
got
it's
tracking
12s
that
in the,
somebody took it out
EOC,
there
but-
and it was delivered at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
Who wired it up and who turned it on? Somebody needs to have on their 214, preferably an electrician, is gonna put on his 214 and he turned up at that school and he wired the generator up. And then he tested it. And then when he left, it was functioning as it should be. And then somebody from the maintenance department is gonna have on his 214, hey, at 1800 hours, I went out there to check the generator and I put some oil in it. So that at 10 o'clock at night, when somebody calls up and says, hey, the generator stopped because it's got no oil, and you say, whoa, 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 wait a minute. I put oil in it at 1800. You see where that helps? I'm pulling a lot of this from real instances. We had that happen in Hardy County. I woke up one morning at 5:30 and it was real quiet. I mean, silent. You can hear the air conditioning running, right? I woke up, there was nothing. No generator, no nothing. They walked back into the generator room, it was 165 degrees. They had forgot to put oil in it. That was the only thing power in Hardy County's EOC. and it was now dead. Yeah. Not a very pleasant morning. Trust me. Yes, sir.
Regarding activity log number 7, on your slides presentation, not really contradictory, but it said two things for the same thing. You mentioned about operational period. These are filled out per operational period. But then you also said they're filled out with actual time.
That is
So when an
correct.
operational period ends, a new form has to be created for the next operational period.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Okay? So,
No, that's
Yeah.
that's one of your answers.
no, no. The reason I say that is, okay, let's say, for instance, I deployed tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock, and when I got there, they said our operational period is from 6 until 6. I work from 6 until 10, but they tell me at the end of the operational period, when you're done, you're done. You can go ahead and demob, you can go home. How am I going to account on that day for my time from 6 o'clock till 10, from 1800 till 10 o'clock? I can't, because I'm not there the next day. So what you do, and again, it's, you write down, right, the operational period. FEMA really will throw you for a curve. You want something that'll really confuse you? FEMA works
I've
on
got enough right now, but go
no,
on.
FEMA works on a 24-hour operational period regardless. Period. They do a 24-hour operational period. But to capture your time, you might only work from 7 till 12 noon. That's all they're gonna pay you, 7 to 12 noon. But at the top of that form, the actual operational period is from 12 to 12.
Okay, so once again, if you're a 12-hour operational period, 6 to 6, and you work till 10, what happens? How do you document the 7 through 10?
The official operational period, so take all of this out of the equation right now.
Right.
The official operational period that the EOC has established, for example, hours in Pinellas County, I know it's 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. The operational period is from 0600 to 1800. That's the operational period. My hours, I work from 0600. I may have come in at 0500 for this operational period. I came in an hour early. This is just to track what operational period day you're working on.
All right, so that being said, 6 o'clock comes around, and you put 12 hours. Now, the next 4 hours, do you start a new operational period?
No.
So how is this even close to accurate for reimbursement? You're not even reporting it.
No, you are. Your activity log, I put in
Okay.
that I came in, even, let's just say 6 to 6, right? I put down here 0500. This is the operational period just for categorizing the event. So separate this from this. From this point on is what I actually did. This is just event related. This top line, incident name and operational period. It could say, just for argument's sake, it could say operational period 1.
Right.
With no time whatsoever, just operational period 1. And we're done with it. I worked operational period 1 from 0500 to 10 o'clock at night.
Okay, so we have an individual staff member doing this on his own individual activities. At whatever time, 6:10, he is done. The next day, or after a rest period, sleep period,
Right.
he starts again.
He starts
Is that
a
under
new-
the new occupational or
New operational period.
operational period?
Yes.
And even if it crosses over to another operational period, just keep it on that one.
That is correct.
Okay.
So mine, for example, when I was responding to Hurricane Ian, mine almost every day. In fact, that one that it showed you the little map inset and stuff with that 6 o'clock till 10 o'clock, that was actually one of my 214s that I submitted for Hardy County. So the operational period was from 0600 to 1800, but yet I started at like 5 o'clock in the morning and I didn't finish till 10 o'clock that night. And all of it was listed down so that then when I handed it in, they looked at that, how I actually got paid and justified my overtime and all of that stuff was with your normal, finance does your normal time cards and stuff like that. This is just backup documentation that when you say, okay, if your normal shift is 6 to 6, but yet you put in on your time card 6 to 10, they're gonna say, well, how'd you come up with those 4 hours overtime? You hand them that 214, you say, there's what I did. For this operational period on this date, that's the real thing they're looking at, or looking for on the date. Here's what I did from 5 to 10. Those are the things that I did.
And my last question is.
No, you're fine.
Excuse me. This form goes live when? At the start of the EOC opening and the close of EOC a week or whatever later? When do these start and end?
Whenever you start doing something.
For the storm.
Okay?
For
For the
you
storm.
pre-storm prep?
Yep.
Yeah.
That wasn't allowed anyway. Okay,
Yeah.
so it could be as early as a week before.
My ACS radio volunteers, the minute I tell them over the radio, hey, the EOC is thinking about activating, I need you guys to start prepping for activation. Technically, a lot of them will start filling out a form, and the first thing they're gonna put, received a call from Clayton, told us we're possibly activating.
Gotcha.
And their next line is gonna say, started prepping for activation, and here's the steps I went through to prepare to activate.
And then the end is when EOC officially closes, or when the state of emergency is over?
When you are done and you are released,
What if you come back the next day? So you mean
you
when
still working the event?
What define released? Because we're released possibly every day for 5 days, and we come back.
But are you still working the event?
Correct.
Okay, if you're working the event, you're filling out a 214.
If 6 months later, a resident calls and says, there was a pile of debris you guys didn't pick up, and I've been calling for 5 months, can we go out? We still do one of these 6 months later? I mean, that's ridiculous.
No,
but
I know
actually
it's
real life
ridiculous.
happens.
I see where you're going with that. That you would have to check with finance on to see whether they're gonna require that.
That would probably depend on whether finance is submitting that duty for reimbursement.
Yeah, it's, a lot of it's whether they're submitting it or not. This is all really and truly, what you gotta remember on this form, one, it's trying to use one form so that everybody's filling out the same information or the same type information, so that when it goes to finance, finance can look and they know where to look for the information they need. They know, okay, they know the incident name, they know the date that it happened, they're looking for your name, what people, if you had any assigned to you, what they were doing, and what hours you worked. Does that line up with what your time card said? So that in your time card, because believe it or not, when they submit for reimbursement, they actually submit copies of your time log as well. If that and your time card match up, you're golden. As I said in the other class, I've yet to have a 214 kickback that I filled out. I've got paid every time. And that includes being deployed to North Carolina, Hurricane Florence, Kentucky floods, Hurricane Ian, Piney Point down in Manatee. I've yet to have one kickback. the main thing is put down as much information as you can on this thing.
Yes.
The way I like to term that to people is, you know, do I need to remember it? Do I need to let would my supervisor want to know this information? Would one of my coworkers possibly need to know this information? If you can answer yes to any of those questions, then write it down. What's it going to hurt to type it down? Nothing.
Yes.
Right? Yes, sir.
One more question on resources assigned. So as you work your way up the chain of command, let's say you've got someone in charge of like utilities, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, they've got several like supervisors or managers like under them that all have their own field crews.
Right.
You need to include each of the field supervisors. Yeah. So it's only for people who are actually doing the work.
Typically, if you remember, I don't know how many people have had ICS classes, right? What's the rule of thumb? Span of control.
5, everybody 5.
Span of control, 5. 3 to 7, 5 being optimal,
Sure.
right? Typically, and that one, the example we gave about that was, let's say it was a push crew. That field supervisor was in charge of 4 trucks for that push crew. So those 4 trucks and the field supervisor made up that crew or that unit. That's it.
So like the public works or like the
The
road.
public works director, the
field
ESF
supervisor?
18, the ESF 18 and all of that stuff. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is for that crew. What
Okay.
did that crew or unit do?
Yeah, so Tommy, like when I'm in the EOC, I'm operations, right?
Yeah,
I have all of the fire department below me doing things out in the field.
sure.
He's not gonna-
I fill out a form for myself as operations in EOC, and that's it.
That's it.
My lieutenant on that unit would fill out resources assigned him because he has 3 people on that unit with him directly reporting to him. Plus, he would fill out one for himself.
Sure.
You know, and each individual will fill out one for himself, but he'll fill out one for that crew. But like with you, it would only be the field supervisors or somebody who's out physically like
Yeah.
supervising those guys.
The individual.
Everybody in the department reporting to you isn't that you're
Yeah.
running the show, so that's not, you know.
Yeah, so it's not your department supervisors or that high up the food chain. No, because that would just get crazy. That really, really would.
Okay. So it's really for like the lowest level of supervision.
It's-
So like
yeah,
one
it's
guy
the
supervises
unit
people who have
level.
to work.
Right. You might have, you know, they might turn around and say to you, say, okay, you grab her, grab a guy from your IT department, grab another guy from Public Works. I need y'all to go out, take this dump truck and go fill some sandbags. You've now got a unit with 3 people attached to you.
Got a full of sandbaggers.
Or go fill sandbags.
And you gotta remember, these are federal forms, right? So they're used for everything. So wildfire, they make
Oh, yeah.
a strike team to go out and do this, and another strike team do that, and they're all reporting to a task force. They'll do those different things, and they use the same forms. Everybody uses the same forms federally, so that's,
Yeah.
you gotta remember, these are generic, they're kinda,
Very, very generic, yeah. And I
it's not gonna
apologize, I
be
know
real
that,
specific to.
I think they did a revision to the form, I did not catch that when I was doing the video, that they had done a revision. And a lot of it depends on what version of the form you download, because all of the ones that I've ever had were, yeah. And that's what's funny is, to give you an example, and I just downloaded this today. When I downloaded this one, it says unit leader, but yet the instruction sheet that goes with it, right? It just has name, which is what y'all said. But out here it says, enter the title of the organization unit or resource designator, facilities unit, safety officer, or strike team,
Which is
even
a,
though it just has name. So if you read the description, it says it's looking for a unit name on it, so it's as clear as FEMA.
But you're going to send me your Word doc that you
Yes, I'm gonna
created.
I'm gonna send you this Word document.
Yeah.
I like using this one simply because, one, I'm lazy. Very easy to use. For example, the date, I click in that box, I pull it down, I got a calendar there. It might not seem very, much, but when you're filling out, when I go on these deployments, I'll take and fill one out for Monday when I'm done of an evening, and I'll save it for that date. When I come back the next night, I'll open up the exact same form, immediately save it as a new name for the next day, and all I gotta do is go in, change the date there, and go down to the bottom, change the date, scrub all this information out, because none of this stuff is gonna change. I'm still doing the same thing. None of that's gonna change. What's going to change is what time did I start and what individual things or significant events that I did on Tuesday.
Just a quick question. Sorry. I'm just wondering, if every employee is going to fill one of these out, why is it necessary to have a unit leader fill it out as well? Wouldn't that be a duplication? And couldn't you just take those individuals and attach it to this form that the unit leader has?
Good point. And we actually came up with an example of that. Okay, so you have a fire truck. It has a lieutenant as a unit leader. He has a driver, and he has the 2 firemen on that truck. He's filling that out for the unit. The unit got dispatched to this call at 0800. So he's marked that down there, right? After the day's over, truck got dispatched to blah, 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 whatever. He, at the same time, after the event is over, might be doing something with, what did we say, what was it? Special needs or something like that. That's nothing to do with the unit. He's doing special needs. The driver, on the other hand, while he's running that truck, might have noticed something that he needs to capture. The 2 firefighters are over here working the fire. Lieutenant's watching the entire group, making sure they got, personnel accountability and all of that, looking after them. The driver notices, oh, my pressure gauge is fluctuating. It's going up and down. The engine's running a little bit funky for whatever reason. He would make a note of that on his personal 214, because to him, that's a significant event. The 2 firemen out there who are doing this might notice that the hose they're using has got a slight rip in it or something like that. The unit leader might not see that. The unit leader might not see that the fire truck is idling odd or something of that nature. So, in that respect, shut that down, sorry. In that respect, that's why each person keeps their own individual 214 to capture the significant events that happened to them, whereas the overall unit that the lieutenant is capturing, he's primarily capturing, okay, we got dispatched to this call at this address. Got back to the station at this time, rekitted the truck, we're good to go. He's capturing the big bullets, the 30,000 foot view. Whereas your individual, you're now getting down to the granular stuff.
You could have
Yes.
people on the crew doing multiple things, so the majority of people, they're not gonna have this, where they're gonna have things. It really falls into, like I said, so like for us on the fire department, we're gonna hit this more than probably most because they run as a crew on calls specifically, right? So they were on a storm unit. They're assigned 3 people on that storm unit. We have a lieutenant and 2 firefighters on that storm unit. They go out for a wires down call. The lieutenant's gonna record that on the form for that unit, for that truck. He's gonna say, at this time to this time, we went out for wires down, taped off the area, returned to quarters, stand by for calls. They get back to quarters, they get back to the station, and my lieutenant may have to go and I say, hey, while you're not doing anything, I need you to go assist with special needs dispatching or writing down stuff for special needs. He's in there doing that. The firefighters are out restocking the truck or doing that. They're going to record those things on their individual because the unit's not doing that, right? The unit's still just sitting standby. But bang, another call comes out, the unit then has to record it. So that's kind of what that's set up for. And again, remember, this is set up for large scale events for lots of different types of things that can happen. When we're talking about hurricanes and things like that, the majority of what you guys will be doing are going to be individual stuff. The only difference to that might be the push crews, might be some of those things where you're actually, you know, have crews going out and doing specific functions as a crew. But that the majority of everybody else is going to be doing individuals, and that's it.
And your push crews, your public works, your utilities, they're the ones that this actually could come in as an asset to them, because you're going to have a unit leader that, as he said, you know, they're out there, you've got your unit leader, you've got somebody who's a chainsaw operator, you've got somebody running a bulldozer, you've got somebody running the dump truck or whatever. They're going to keep their individual stuff, but then he's going to keep, as a unit, what was that unit assigned to do? Unit dispatched at 0800 to clear Tarpon Boulevard. That's what our unit was designed, sent out to do. At 9:30, unit reassigned to go clear Highway 19 at such and such intersection. It's the big things that that entire unit as a whole was picked up and told to go somewhere else. Now, individually, that unit leader might be doing, as Chief said, there might be doing other things. Chainsaw operator, he's operating his chainsaw, keeping track of all of his stuff, chainsaw break-in, or need to get a new chainsaw, or whatever. Same with the dump truck driver, or the brush truck driver, and the same as front end loader, or whatever. So they're gonna have their individual things. Now, a lot of people have said, what about capturing all of the equipment and stuff like that? Trust me, there is a FEMA form for that. I have to also fill them out, the command runners. I know y'all have probably not seen those. They're these communications units. They've got generators in them. I have to keep track of, did we check them out? How long did the generators run? So were they serviced? Have we changed the oil? All of that good stuff. That's on a what's called an equipment checklist. And I apologize, there are so many forms out there, I can't remember them all. But there is a FEMA book. If you just do Google FEMA ICS forms, there is a booklet out there. And they go from a 201 all the way up to, I know, a 309. They've got, how many people have ever heard of what they call T-cards? Forestry Service uses them a lot. They have like about 6 or 8 different T-cards. That what those are is, it's just basically a big pocketed cloth thing or a board that has got different colored cards in it. Half the board says in service, the other half the board says out of service. That when you go to check out a chainsaw, grab a chainsaw, what number is it? Number 5, okay. Clayton has that one on this and this date, and I checked it out. It's like the old swimmer tags when the kids used to go in the water. buddy system, they'd hang their tags on the board, I'm showing my age now. And then when they got out of the water, the lifeguard would check. If all the tags were off of the board, everybody was out of the water. If there were tags still left on the board, that means somebody's still in the water. Not a good day. Yes, sir.
Okay. I appreciate you doing the drop-down box, no, that's great. However, realistically, 99% of these forms are gonna be handwritten. A, will that be, well, question for finance, will that be acceptable? Must they be typed? Because that's gonna have rain, blood, sweat.
That's
everything
why,
on it.
that's why I said, I don't fill my form out as I go. I do not. I literally, this was given to me, Lakeland Fire Department guy, and it's got, let's see, I'm going back to April 3rd, 2019, April 3rd, 2022. 9:30, I departed Largo to go to Sun and Fun. In Lakeland, 11 o'clock I arrived. Monday, the Colt, which is a cell-on truck. See, I've got it down, and I just wrote down anything significant, like, so for the entire day Monday, I only had 4 things on my 214. Colt arrived at 10:30, generator arrived at 11 o'clock, departed the cell park at 11, and deployed the cell pack, and then Colt was on there at 11:45. Then at that afternoon at 3:30, I filled the brush truck ATV with water. That was all I did that day. That was it. All I did, that was significant. The rest of the time, basically, I was on ready standby. And I put in, the hours from 06 until 06. But the last significant thing I did was at 3:30 that afternoon when I filled up the ATV truck. So that's what you want to remember. You don't have to account for every second. It's primarily, that word right there, major or significant events. Something you think somebody needs to know about or might need to know about.
Another form plate, we didn't list lunches or breaks or sleep or whatever in between.
Right.
So we don't normally list it, but is that something we don't even ever have to make mention because it's not a major event, or is it?
Well, the reason I mentioned it on mine, and if you'll notice in the video, I said you can add these if you want to, but they're not required. The reason I added it is because Pinellas County, the way they reimburse things is, and obviously if you've ever done any travel for Tarpon, I'm not sure of their travel policies, they probably reimburse you. But if you're staying at a hotel and the hotel provides breakfast, they're not going to pay for your breakfast because the hotel provided for it, right? But if you went to a conference or whatever, hotel provides you breakfast, but you had to pay for your own lunch and your own dinner, whether it be per diem or however they do it. I put it on my 214 so that I could recall and also specifically point out breakfast provided, lunch, no.
I'm not talking reimbursable for the cost of the meal. I'm talking about if you have from 6 a.m. to 1600.
He said no, Tony. He said no, you don't write that down.
You said he did as well.
What's that?
Downtime, break time.
Oh, downtime?
Right. Not lunch or breakfast or dinner, just.
Are you still on the clock?
Yes.
Yes.
If you're still on the clock, like I just did on mine, like I just showed you, right? I was actually operational from 06. Actually, ours was from 07 to 07. And the last thing I did on that one date was, where did I have it there? I think it was 3:30. The last thing I did was fill up the, I filled the brush ATV with water at 3:30. The operational period was until 6, 7 o'clock. So that downtime, I didn't have anything written there because there was nothing significant that I needed to report. Just because there's empty boxes there doesn't mean you have to fill them up.
So you don't
Right.
want, yeah.
So I captured, you know, if I did something that you guys need to know about, you know, I didn't put down, I went to the restroom. I didn't put down, I went and had a drink because I was thirsty. I probably am going to put down that, you know, 12 o'clock went and had lunch,
12 o'clock, you went and had lunch, sounds like a plan.
right? 1 o'clock, returned from lunch. Do I have to? No. But if I want to remember, or if somebody says, have you had lunch? Or did you have lunch yesterday? I could theoretically go back and say, yeah, I had lunch from 12 to 1 yesterday. And oh, by the way, I wrote down, it cost me X number of dollars, you know, that somebody's going to have to come off to get it. It's, you know, it's very, very fluid. Like you said, these are a generic form that FEMA uses for pretty much everything, just to capture activities. But downtime, if I'm still on the clock and I did not do anything major, significant, or anything like that, there was no need for me to write it down. You know, I could have put down 3:30 filled the ATV with water, and then 1,800 hours in shift. That's the end of my 214. I only had 5 entries. But in between 3:30 and 1,800, just like a fireman, I was on hot standby.
Yeah.
I was on active standby.
Active standby is the
If
term finance uses.
something would have happened, I was on duty.
I mean, somebody can come in and say, hey, I need you to do this, and you
Yeah,
do it.
I'm ready
Whether
to
you're
go.
sleeping or not makes no difference. You're here
I
being
could have been
paid.
sitting there watching TV, you know, scratching my ear, whatever.
That's what I'd be doing.
If they don't have something for me to do, they don't have something for me to do. If everything's working, that's great. You know, I may put down in there, 1,600 hours. Walked around site, checked, made sure everything okay, all systems good. If I wanted to put a notation in there, but do I have to? No. But yeah, you'll capture that stuff. It will be captured in the overall scheme of things. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
So just to clear everything, this is an additional form, not to be used in lieu of the tracking forms we used before, which was specific to gallons, numbers, bags, equipment, vehicles. That's tracked separately, so this is an additional form, not in lieu of.
That's something that obviously
We'll
the
get-
city of Tarpon has, and I got no
Okay.
control over it. This is primarily for finance to track man-hours.
Only.
Exactly, man-hours and activity only. So that when they go to apply to FEMA for reimbursement, either from the county or from the state or from national, they can get their money back. I get my volunteers to fill this out. Because believe it or not, volunteers, when you send that up to FEMA, what's the rate now, Megan? I think it's what, like 27 or 28?
I think so.
Yeah, it's
28.
almost $30 an hour. FEMA will reimburse you for using volunteers. But it has to be tracked.
Free money to the county.
It has to be tracked. I'm just talking about regular county volunteers. You know, your cert volunteers and stuff like that, they'll pay you for them.
Chief Young, I think there will need to be some follow-up with this group, with the equipment stuff that Tony's talking about. I understand this came up in the previous meeting, things beyond the scope of what Mr. Clayton's gonna be able
Yeah,
to
I'm
tell
not
us
privy to
about.
what's going on, but.
Yeah,
No, we're talking about, he's got a form
There's
like
still forms.
Tarpon's, the old forms, to where they tracked, the equipment, what supplies they use, gallons, fuel, oil, sandbags, all of those type, equipment type items. And I said to them, there are forms that FEMA has
Correct.
that would capture those things. Or if they're wanting to use theirs, I mean, I've got no control.
Let's
over
do
that.
this. We've been in here a long time. If you're not involved with this part of it, if you're done, you don't have any questions, you can.
Just make sure to sign the
Sign the
sign-in
roster,
sheet.
please.
I don't know where it's at.
pick you up Monday.
Chief, don't mess up it.